underwater. It took a lot of work. I was exhausted. I might have been serious forever and started gathering animals for the ark or something like that. If it weren't for my outrageous, unforgettable, at times wildly inappropriate, punk grandpa. I am 6 years old. I think it's going to be a magical day because I'm spending the weekend at my grandma and grandpa Coleman's house with my family. My mom, dad, brother Josh, and baby sister Katie, who looks a little like Shirley Temple. My mom is a librarian who wakes up in the mood to vacuum at 7 a.m. on a summer morning. And my dad is a CPA who safety pins his socks together in the wash. My brother Josh was a 4-year-old who made fun of everything I did, always calling me freak show. You aren't just a freak in the freak show, you are the entire freak show. I love freak shows, but my brother didn't. I was not the favorite in the family. I just didn't fit in, that's all. My Aunt Susan once asked me, in front of my entire nuclear family, "So, how'd you manage to spring from the loins of those two?" I think you are a changeling. A gypsy's trained. They have dark hair, you know. On that Sunday morning, at breakfast, in my grandma and grandpa's house, I was wearing my red Ranger pajamas with the feet in them, the kind that button up only in the back. And I was afraid my big butt was going to come bursting out of them any second, and I wasn't wearing any underwear. I was always worried about stuff like that. I was nervous that everyone was going to laugh at me, and I was not comfortable with my own skin. I looked down at my grandma's sparkly snowflake tablecloth and grabbed the syrup when no one is looking, except for Aunt Erna's candy cane kid figures. Don't tell anybody. And put only a drop of syrup on my pancake. I tried to spread it out over the whole pancake, but I was shredding it. Then I hear a high-pitched ringing sound, and my grandpa says into his hearing aid, "Bob Bowman here. How's the foreign situation?" "Yes, FBI agent Kevin. My granddaughter Laura is right here." My grandpa handed me his hearing aid, and I looked at it, wondering what the foreign situation was. What I must have done wrong this time. I remember the night before, when my brother and I were screaming at each other, fighting over who should get to hold my baby sister Katie. And then she started crying. My dad overheard the whole thing. He was in the hallway with a shadow thrown over us. And he said, "See, kids, even a baby can sense sin." Did the FBI somehow find out about that? They are everywhere. I look at my family around the breakfast table, and I carefully hold my grandpa's hearing aid. I was afraid of breaking it and just everything about the situation. I look at it for a moment, take a deep breath, and hold it to my ear. "Hello? Agent Kevin? This is Laura Force. How can I help you?" I listen, and I just hear some static. Seems strange. Freak show. You thought there was really an FBI agent? Josh, too far. You are being too hard on your sister. Yeah. So, there's really no FBI Am I agent talking to you through your hearing aid? Are you sure? My mom said, Laura, stop it, it's not real. Well, what do you think, Laura? Maybe they're just not working today. I love not knowing if something's real or not. Laura, calm down. I'm going to the twilight. My grandpa meant he was going to the toilet. As he always liked to play with words, and he told us everything that he was doing, so we knew exactly where he was all of the time. A few moments later, on his return from the twilight, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. He sang a lot. Do-wop. I hate Satsy, and you know that. So, my grandpa stuck out his prosthetic teeth at my grandma. He only had 3 real teeth, because when he was a kid, every time his mom sent him to the dentist, he took the money and went to the movies and bought candy instead. My grandpa tried to make up with my grandma. I like your new dress, Carol. I've had it for 35 years, Bob, and I wear it every day. In front of all of us, my grandpa said, "You have nice breasts." It made me so nervous that I reached for the Starburst bottle and started pouring the syrup on as hard and as fast as I possibly could. My plate was overflowing with syrup, spilling onto my lap. Then my grandpa said, "That'll put hair on your chest." That'll put hair on your chest. What does that mean? It means it'll make you a big, strong punk like me. After breakfast, we went to my grandma and grandpa's very conservative church for a special Saturday service. Upon entering the church, I heard an adult say, "The liberals are not going to heaven." I didn't know what a liberal was, but it sounded kind of delicious. Ice cream or something. I wanted to meet the liberals and tell them everything was going to be okay. When I went to children's church, a teacher asked us, "Where does alcohol come from?" I had no idea. She said, "Besides the fruit and wheat mixing together, the devil?" My grandma has a glass of red wine every night for dinner, and she told me it's good for her heart. And I believe her. I wondered what was going on upstairs in the big church. After the service, I remember there were all of these grown-ups there that were bragging about their children's prestigious careers in medicine, science, and technology, and going into the ministry. And so my grandpa, sick of it, said, "My kids are doing great too. My son John, he lives in New York. He drives a big car, runs his own business. He's a pimp." She's doing real well too. She works for him. Immediately, the churchgoers decided it was time to go to Baker Square. As they ran off, I heard them saying, "We will have We are praying for you, and is he a real Christian? Grandpa called after them, and don't take any wooden nickels! I was shocked that Grandma could say such things inside the church. I was also jealous. Like my grandpa, I've encountered some self-righteous, legalistic church people. I remember once, a girl in our church youth group, Jen, was dating a non-Christian guy named Darren. This was heavily frowned upon. One day after school, in the hallway by our lockers, a lot of us at church went to the same school. Darren said, oh my God! Mandy, a girl from our church, overheard him and said, is he your God, Darren? Is he? I couldn't believe how quickly she came up with that asinine statement. It was like this button marked automatic judgment had been pushed on her. Now, I am married to an atheist. And I go to a church that is truly all-inclusive and non-judgmental. My church has held Bible studies and gay bars, and one of the pastors, to promote the church when it was first starting out, gave a flyer about the church to an adult bookstore, and the employee hung it up. Back to that magical day. Come here, oldest grand punk. We're going for a special ride. Just him and me. Grandma called after us. When are you coming back? I don't know, we're just going down the road a piece. We're having goulash and tomato soup spice cake at 5, so don't take too long. Hoyle! And he stuck out his teeth at her. Okay, Carol! That's what he did when he was done fighting with Grandma. Despite their fighting, I knew that Grandma and Grandpa truly loved each other. My grandma told me that the first time she saw his smile, it was like in West Side Story. She saw him and the world went away. On our way out that day for our special ride, my grandpa grabbed my little sister's thumb and put it in his mouth. Because he thought she'd been sucking on it too much. We were all trying to help her quit. She did not put her thumb back in her mouth for the rest of the day. In his gargantuan, white, 1988 Oldsmobile, silver streak across the roof, Grandpa was driving all over the road, as if no one else was going to be there, and careening around corners, going faster than I had ever gone in my life. Nobody I ever knew drove like this. I loved it. It was exhilarating. He yelled out his window to any and every woman walking down the street. Hey, pick you up in an hour! I was laughing hysterically as we watched utterly bewildered women stare at him as we screeched off. One woman after another. There was one particularly shapely woman that my grandpa commented on. She's really wearing that sweater. I couldn't believe how Grandpa was married, but teased and flirted with every female he came into contact with. And Grandma didn't mind because she told me he gave her too much attention. And all they love it. At his church, people would stand in the back and wait for my grandpa, an usher, to seat them. After he seated someone, they were always smiling. He would call every lady that he seated Miss America. He was known as the best usher at his church, and he considered everyone to be his friend. The guy that sold him cigarettes at the gas station, everybody. Next stop on my adventure with Grandpa, the bank. The moment we walked in, all 25 of the tellers turned, waved, and smiled. He said to me, "See, these are all my girlfriends. Don't tell Grandma." I was completely freaked out. I didn't know what to do. Grandma had girlfriends? How could I not tell Grandma about this? What if she asked me who we saw? Plus, I wasn't sure what to say or do with all the tellers looking at him and me. I hid behind my grandpa. He talked and laughed with every single teller. Everyone in the bank, employees and customers, knew my grandpa. I was a celebrity. When I went to the bank with my mom, we'd go straight in and come right back out in 5 minutes. I don't know how long I was there with my grandpa. And time didn't matter. It was like a dream sequence. The manager sat me down at a kid's table and gave me a coloring book and crayons. I said, "Thank you," and fell out of my chair right after I sat down. But I looked around and I don't think anyone noticed because they were talking to my grandpa. Somehow, my grandpa found where the donuts and coffee were. If there were donuts and coffee in a place where my grandpa was, he always found them. After Grandpa had talked to everyone in the place, and we were getting ready to leave, it started to look overcast outside. So, my grandpa went to the lost and found right away and asked, "Did anyone turn in a black umbrella?" Making believe that he had lost his. Of course, there were tons of black umbrellas, so he just picked one. I could never do that. He had a habit of doing this whenever he wanted another umbrella. It was never because he had actually lost one. It was dishonest, but it was so funny. "I've lost so many umbrellas, somebody's walking around with mine." Okay, that made sense to me. Then we headed home. We were about a block away from Grandma and Grandpa's house. My grandpa just started honking the horn like a maniac. "I do this every day. Watch. The kids are going to come out." At that moment, all of these kids started pouring out of their houses and running after us. Then, my grandpa started driving on the sidewalk to tease the kids and pretended to get just a little bit too close to them. He said he was racing them to his house. The kids loved this game. But a cranky teenager who couldn't be bothered said, "Get on my sidewalk." Dropped it. My grandpa loved to say that. I loved to hear those words. So magical to me because Grandpa really didn't care what anyone thought. Then I saw a lady who looked a lot like June Cleaver lean out of her window and shout at us, "I can't believe how close you are to my house right now." When we pulled into the driveway, about 25 kids had assembled. They all wanted Grandpa to twirl them around and give them airplane rides. And he was happy to swing them around and around. But after the last kid, he was getting tired, so started heading to the front door. But the kids wouldn't let him go. They blocked the door. So Grandpa started running towards the back of the house. And then all of the kids followed him. And then he yelled to my grandma, "Carol, open the door!" And we slipped in just in time as we saw the kids smashing their faces up against the window, looking at us, wishing they were where I was with him. We were about to have our goulash and tomato soup spice cake when the doorbell rang. Who could that be? I ran to the front door. It's a policeman! My whole family ran into the front room to see what was going on. My grandpa sized up the policeman and said, "How's it going, baby? How's it going, boy? Are you fine and dandy, sugar candy?" We received a report about someone driving on the sidewalk. I didn't want my grandpa to go to jail, but if he was going to go, I'd go with him. I ran up to Grandpa and hugged his legs. "Yeah, that was me. What? Is it illegal? Just don't do it." The police officer left very quickly, as if he had some other really important things to do. My grandpa called after him, "Nice doing business with you. And don't take any wooden nickels." "Yay, Grandpa! You're not going to jail." "Nope. Don't you worry, little punk. Bob Holman is a good boy." After dinner, Grandpa and I had music time in his room. Just him and me. Oh. This is a shove-it. Do you know what this is called? It's called a shove-it. A shove-it? Grandpa showed me his saxophone cleaning tool every time I saw him. It was basically this furry, feathery, black, white, and gray thing on a stick, and he would shove it inside the saxophone to clean it up. Then he told me he wanted to have a theory talk with me. This made me feel very smart and important because I'd been taking piano lessons for 2 years, and music theory was the hardest part of piano lessons for me. My piano teacher told me we would take a vacation from theory, and we never came back from it. But somehow, I knew all of the answers to my grandpa's questions about theory. He started to learn how to play the saxophone pretty much because someone told him that he was too old to start at the age of 68. He didn't feel ready to play in a band with people his own age yet. So, since senior citizens could audit any high school class for free at the high school nearest to him, where all of his children went, he learned how to play the saxophone by playing in the band at Prospect High School. I can just imagine the things he might have said and done in that high school band class. I'm sure that he walked in like he owned the place, because that was his way. He would say and live. If you act like you belong, people will believe in you. I bet he announced to the whole class, "I'm going to the Twilight!" every time he had to go to the toilet. And I'm sure he asked all of the kids teeth? On the first day, I could see him saying to an attractive teacher who had no idea what he was doing there, "I'm here to inspect all of your nooks and crannies." He would say this to every secretary he met when he was attempting to sell his janitorial services at one of his jobs. After our theory talk, he played polka dots and moonbeams for me on a saxophone. It's a song about a girl and boy accidentally bumping into each other at a dance, and they end up spending the rest of their lives together. In my frightened arms, polka dots and moonbeams sparkled on a pug-nosed dream. There were questions in the eyes of other dancers as we floated over the floor. There were questions, but my heart knew all the answers, and perhaps a few things more. My grandpa taught me to trust my heart despite the questions of others. Grandpa Bowman gave me a real love for big band jazz swing music. Swing is defined by Webster as melody notes that are played ahead of the beat, across the beat, or behind the beat, allowing the performer to express the more relaxed, rhythmic, or even driving feeling with an anything can happen feel, full of improvisatory freedom. Describing not only the kind of music, the only kind of music my grandpa would listen to, but his approach to life. I aspire every day to possess the kind of freedom he had. As my Uncle John says, the kind of freedom for which people would spend thousands of dollars for in therapy. Once, in the nursing home, as I was waiting for my grandpa, while one of the workers was dressing him, his Benny Goodman tape was playing. And when he came out of the bathroom, he said to me, "What do we do now?" "Dance." "Dance?" "Yeah." And we did.